In September of 2025, one podcaster disappeared in the woods near Cambridge, Massachusetts, while recording an episode of a video game show. 1 week later, his audio was found.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Classic Gaming Brothers. I'm Seth, and, well, Zach isn't here, which is where he usually says, and I'm Zach. And he usually gets in here early, but not today. I was expecting a note, or at least a text, but all I found was this old cassette tape near where he usually sits. And the tape says, "Do not listen." And I haven't listened to Zach ever in my life, and I don't take orders from him. So I fished out this old tape player, and I'm going to see what's on this thing. All right, give me a minute.
Hey Seth, so I was down in our archives earlier today trying to find my notes for next week's episode. I was thinking of doing something related to maybe Resident Evil or something related to that, and I know we talked about that before, so I was hoping to maybe find some of our old notes as I couldn't find them in our digital archive. Well, I found something weird. You know those tunnels that you found that lead to the airport? I found more of them, and this one led me to a forest. And what's really weird is I came down here during the day, but it was dark out already. Like, it was day when I entered the tunnel, and that I was in the forest, and it's pitch black out here. It is super dark. Anyway, I figured I'd just talk a little bit kind of at random, maybe talk to you about an episode I was kind of brainstorming, and then maybe I can hopefully find my way back to the... Did you hear that? Hold on. I gotta get... Where's my lights? Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, what the... I don't see anything. I'm just going to keep walking. Let me tell you this idea I had. Back in 1999, one of the most important horror films would hit theaters, The Blair Witch Project, directed and written by Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez, and would become a genre setter, really establishing the found footage mockumentary style of horror movies. Now, it wasn't the first, and it wouldn't be the last of these found footage style films, but it would certainly set the standard for what we would know as these found footage movies. It was shot on a shoestring budget with a completely unknown cast. The movie takes place in the deep woods of Burkittsville, Maryland, as a group of filmmakers go on the hunt for the legendary Blair Witch. The main filmmakers, Heather, Josh, and Mike, are all played by actors that shared their real names, and this really added a level of authenticity to the role. So, for example, the actress who played Heather, Heather Donahue, was really named Heather Donahue, and Joshua Leonard was really named Joshua Leonard. The film is largely unscripted. There were some specific moments that were scripted out, but most of the movie was improvised dialogue and improvised reactions. The crew would often try to get real terror out of the cast. In fact, a lot of the production was so improvised that the actress Heather Donahue has recounted some odd stories about, like, when she first auditioned for the role, they had asked her, if you've served 7 years of a 9-year sentence, why would we let you out on parole? Which is a strange question for a filmmaker to ask a actor, and has nothing to do with the Blair Witch Project, but maybe they really were trying to get into this improvised mindset. One of the actors, Joshua Leonard, was only cast because he was familiar with cameras and would be the one that was actually filming the movie. A lot of the lore of the movie was developed based on various ghost stories, the Salem witch trials, and real figures in history like Ellie Kedward, who is the name of the Blair Witch herself, sharing a name, or rather being similar to the name Edward Kelly, a mystic from the 1500s. Yeah, definitely heard something this time, right? Maybe I'm just imagining things. I'm talking about the Blair Witch Project, right? So a little scary. Maybe it's got that on the mind. What was I saying? The Blair Witch. It was being filmed by the actors, and filming was done using a CP16 film camera, which I'm familiar with. I actually used one of those in my time in college, and a Hi8 video camera, a popular camcorder that was readily available to the general public. The woods section of the film, which For those of you who don't know, the film primarily begins out as a standard documentary with some talking head segments, and then the rest of the movie takes place in the woods as the actors are hiking to a place called Coffin Rock. The woods sections were filmed in the woods of Maryland, and the actors were pretty much left alone and given vague clues as where they needed to walk to, and the crew would reportedly harass them as they camp and even reportedly deprive them of food. And this really started to get in on the actors' minds. One thing I had heard, and I don't know how true it is, but I had heard that the actors were sometimes given false information by the crew, and this would lead to distrust among the different actors themselves. So there's a couple of scenes where you see the actors getting really frustrated and really annoyed with each other, and this was them actually getting annoyed. The example in particular I'm thinking of is there's a scene involving the map going missing, and one of the actors truly believed that the map had gone missing. This was an actual fear that they had, and their reaction is 100% legitimate. It is a freaky movie. A really freaky movie. What was that? Needless to say, yeah, spooky movie, and the audiences thought so too. It grossed around $248 million at box office off of a budget of around $750,000. It raked in the money. It really, really surpassed, I think, anyone's expectations, and it inspired plenty of sequels, books, comics, copycats, and for purposes of today, video games. Something I had learned just recently was that there is in fact a trilogy based on the Blair Witch Project that was released on the PC around the same time by 3 different developers on the same engine, which is just a very odd kind of sentence to say. These are 3 different games in the same trilogy based on elements from the movie Blair Witch Project, developed each by a different developer. The first of the games would be Blair Witch Volume 1, Rust and Par, developed by Terminal Reality and released in 2000. Terminal Reality could probably get an episode on their own. They're a very interesting company. They started back in 1994, founded by Mark Randell and Brett Combs. They really started out with very little money, about $1,000 to their name, working out of Combs' basement. The two got together because they wanted to work on 3D texture mapped games. Their first would be called Terminal Velocity, which was published by 3D Realms and managed to sell upward to 200,000 copies. With some money to their name, Terminal Reality would go to work with Microsoft, developing games like Fury 3, Monster Truck Madness, Kart Precision Racing, and Monster Truck Madness 2. In 1998, they became a founder of Gathering of Developers, a publisher who consisted of some other developers in the PC gaming market, Edge of Reality, 3D Realms, Epic Games, PopTop Software, and Ritual Entertainment. One of the games that Terminal Reality would produce and publish under Gathering of Developers was a survival horror game in 1999 called Nocturne. Developed by 13 people, Nocturne is set during the Prohibition, where you play as an American government agent who works for an agency called Spook House HQ, which investigates paranormal activities. You team up with a Dampier to fight werewolves, zombies, and vampires. The engine the game uses, called the Nocturne engine, is very similar to Resident Evil or Silent Hill. It uses 3D characters on pre-rendered backgrounds. So picture Resident Evil where you have the 3D characters superimposed on these pre-rendered backgrounds. Nocturne sold moderately well, with 109,000 units sold by October of 2001. It was also fairly well received at the time, with publications like GamePro giving it a 4 out of 5 stars, GameFan giving it a 91%, and GameSpy giving it 94%. Its popularity may have warranted a sequel, but certainly not the sequel I would expect, which is a crossover sequel with the Blair Witch Project. I guess it kind of makes sense. The Blair Witch Project was a smash hit at the box office. The Blair Witch Project craze was taking force. People were trying to capitalize on it. A crossover sequel is not what I would have imagined, especially because it's kind of an odd sort of thing if you think about it. You have this game that is about Prohibition-era vampire hunters and a movie about paranormal activity in the woods. But for some reason, someone thought this was a match made in heaven, so they decided to create a prequel game and incorporate elements of the Nocturne lore. The game, Blair Witch Volume 1, Rust and Parr, has you playing as Elspeth Doc Holliday, who works for Spookhouse HQ, and is sent to Burkittsville to investigate some mysterious things. Once there, you learn about the legend of the Blair Witch, and suddenly things take a turn for the spooky as you investigate this legend and the murders committed by Rustin Parr, who claims that he only killed people because he was controlled by the Blair Witch. Yeah, it is really spooky out here, Seth. Hopefully, you're taking some notes down. I don't know, maybe this information is useful to you. Who knows?
No, I didn't take any notes, and I don't think it's really useful for me, but I guess we'll keep playing this tape.
Alright, so Blair Witch Volume 1, Rust and Parr. It did not great. It released on October 4th, 2000, got mixed reviews, and sold about 49,000 units by 2001. Most of the reviewers at the time noted the game was very atmospheric, but criticized the fact that the game was rather short, at just about 10 hours of gameplay. As comparison, American McGee's Alice released the same year, and can take upward to 12.5 hours doing side quests, and almost 20 hours in a completionist run, and Resident Evil Code Veronica can take upward to 14 hours to beat. Releasing only a few days later, on October 25th, 2000, was the sequel, Blair Witch Volume 2, The Legend of Coffin Rock. Despite being a follow-up to the first game, it is also a prequel. The story takes place sometime during the Civil War. You play as a Union soldier who awakens in a small town with amnesia, and he is discovered by the townspeople at the edge of death and nursed back to health. And then you're tasked with rescuing a girl named Robin who has gone missing. What I should mention real quick is that this story of Coffin Rock and the story of the previous game, Rust and Parr, both come from the Blair Witch Project movie. And what you have is, in the movie, there's a scene where they talk about Rustin Parr, a man who's accused of murdering children. He ends up saying that he was controlled by the Blair Witch. It's this, urban legend they tell in town. And the Coffin Rock story is about a girl who goes missing named Robin. People go look for her, and they never return. So in the movie, Blair Witch Project, the main characters are going to Coffin Rock. That is where they're planning to camp out, though they never make it. The game itself, Legend of Coffin Rock, would be developed by a different company than Terminal Velocity, though it would retain the same engine. It would be developed by a company called Human Head Studios, who were founded in 1997 by a group of 6 people, some of whom previously were employed at Raven Software. They hadn't really put out any games yet, and when they were working on Coffin Rock, they would also be working on a game called Rune, which would release only a few days after Coffin Rock. Like the previous game, The Legend of Coffin Rock had mixed reviews. It also only sold around 16,000 copies by 2001. Most people complained about the shortness, repetitive gameplay, and annoying camera controls. Rune, by the way, would release at the same time. Again, only a few days later, and sold about 50,000 units by 2001 with mostly positive reviews. Okay, that was definitely a sound. I gotta get moving. Okay, hold on.
Huh. That's weird. The tape jammed. Give me a moment. You know how it is with this type of stuff. While I'm actually here, I realized that Zach never gave us his recently played or retro rewind. Wow. What a jerk. Well, I'll make sure that he covers that next week. Oh, here we go. I think I got the tape fixed.
Okay. There is something definitely out here in the woods. I'm not sure what it is, but I think I saw it. I hid myself pretty well, so hopefully I can get through the rest of this episode. But, it was kind of spooky. I just saw a lot of smoke coming at me, like a smoky haze of some sort. Anyway, let's talk about this final Blair Witch game. The Blair Witch Volume 3, The Ellie Kedward Tale, which came out in November of 2000. And as I mentioned, the previous games, Rustin Parr and Coffin Rock, were based on stories from the Blair Witch Project movie. Ellie Kedward Tale is unique in that it is mostly an original story based on the character of Ellie Kedward, who is the Blair Witch. The rest of the story is not from the movie, it is just the developers coming up with a story to tell using this character. It was developed by Ritual Entertainment, who were a game developer that was part of the gathering of developers and would originally be founded in 1996 and later work on games like Sin and Star Trek Elite Force 2 and Legacy of Kain, Counter-Strike Condition Zero, and Delta Force Black Hawk Down Team Saber. Never heard of that one, but the other ones I've certainly heard of. Now, in the game, you don't play as Ellie Kedward, which I think would be awesome. You should definitely have a game where you play as the Blair Witch. That would be amazing. But no, you play as a guy named Jonathan Pry, who was an ex-priest, and the game is set in the year 1785. Pry has stopped being a priest. He's now turned to witch hunting, and he travels to Blair Township, future Burkittsville, to investigate the disappearance of a woman named Ellie Kedward, who has been accused of witchcraft. Children begin going missing in Blair Township, and you're tasked with figuring out what's happening. Beyond exploring 1780s Burkittsville, you also get to travel to the spirit realm and a demon realm, which is bizarre, let me say. I will say this about the Blair Witch Project film. One thing I think I liked most about it when I first saw it is the fact that it is just at that element of almost a type of deniability where you can kind of imagine it being real, right? Like, the movie is obviously staged. I mean, we know how it was made. We know who made it. We know the actors. But there's part of it that just feels kind of real. For one thing, there's no obvious paranormal things that happen in the movie. Spoiler alert for anyone who's never seen Blair Witch Project, most of the stuff that is scaring them happens off camera. You don't really see anything. And the things that you do see happen so quickly that they can really be just explained by, it could be someone faking it sort of deal, you know? And that's one of the things I think I really like about the Blair Witch Project. It feels real, and it has this kind of sense of being grounded. However, going to the spirit realm, or the demon realm, does not feel very grounded, and it feels like the series decided to jump the shark. When you do go to the spirit realm in Blair Witch Volume 3, the Ellie Kedward Tale, you can meet Hecatomix, a powerful spirit who's apparently tied to the Blair Witch legend. The Ellie Kedward Tale did not do well. It did pretty mediocre on release, and it sold the worst out of all three. It didn't even make 10,000 copies sold. It sold only 8,500 units by 2001. It also received mostly negative reviews, with people calling the game neither scary or challenging. And really, that would do it for the Blair Witch Project games, at least until 2019, when Blooper Team would release a game just called Blair Witch. This would be much more closer to the tone and the aesthetic of the original movie. In fact, it acts as more of a sequel to that movie. It's set in 1996 and incorporates a found footage aesthetic in that you are holding a camcorder as you walk around the entire game. So I think Blooper Team probably understood Blair Witch Project a bit better than the Gathering developers did, but it's cool that we do have these Resident Evil, Silent Hill-esque Blair Witch games that I didn't even know existed until just a few days ago. Oh, did you hear that? Oh no. Seth, I think it found me. I gotta get moving. I don't know where the exit. I don't know which way I came from. I think it's right behind me.
Hey, Zach, you gotta get back to the studio. No more unsanctioned trips.
Oh, it's Producer Doug. Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, no worries. Hey, Producer Doug, sorry about that. All right, see ya. Yeah, it was Producer Doug this whole time. He, well, you heard him. He returned on some lights for me. That's really nice of him. All right, well, I guess I'm gonna head back to the studio, Seth. I guess we can wrap up this episode. You know what? Why don't you just get into the whole spiel right at the end? All right, see you soon.
Well, that's great. I'm glad that Zach is okay, and more importantly, I'm glad that Producer Doug found him. And I'm sure Zach also learned a lot about those Blair Witch games that nobody bought, and I also didn't really care about. Well, If you have anything spooky you remember about the Blair Witch Project film, or if you played those games, let us know by emailing us at classicgamingbrothers@gmail.com. We're available on social media with Classic Gaming Brothers on Twitch and Facebook, and CG Brothers Pod on Twitter and Blue Sky. And of course, we're on our website, www.classicgamingbrothers.com. Am I forgetting anything?
Don't play games like my brother.
Don't play games like my brother.
I've been Zach.
And I've been Seth.
And we've been the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's right.
That's right.